July 19th, 1944, a wise man was brought into this world. His name was Bert. This man was my grandfather. My grandfather grew up in a wealthy family, a family that didn't need to worry about money. Growing up, Bert attended a private school that offered the best education. For example, he could have published a book by grade 8. After Bert graduated from the secondary school, with high honors, he attended Chile's University of Agriculture and pursued his dream of being a professor. After 6 years of education, Bert received his doctorate in agriculture. When he took the position as a professor of agriculture, he moved to Coyhaique, a small city in the south region of Chile. A little while after, Bert fell in love with a poor woman named Betty, who happens to be my grandmother. It was love at first sight. I literally meant that when I said it, because boom, 11 months later, Bert found himself standing beside my grandmother while their eldest son, Bert Jr., was born. Now, this wasn't their last child, because a year later, here comes another one, my father, Pablo. For the next 5 years, Bert and his family lived on an acreage just outside Coyhaique. In 1973, President Allende and his supporters were subject to coup d'etat. Now, for those who aren't familiar with coup d'etat, it was basically a military takeover. A lot happened, but to keep things short, Allende's socialist government was overthrown by General Augusto Pinochet, a Republican army general. Allende was killed and all of his supporters were beaten, raped, injured, and thrown in jail and concentration camps, or just plain up killed. Pinochet felt that my grandpa as a professor had a great amount of political influence, and so as a result he was thrown in jail for 18 months. He was mentally and physically tortured every day for a year and a half. When Bert was released from prison in 1975, he was terrified and concerned about the safety of his family. Eventually he was exiled to Canada, where he and his family found themselves in the small city of Regina, Saskatchewan. From there, they made the move to Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, a small, flat, cold, English-speaking community. No one in my family knew how to speak a word of English, and the first year in Saskatchewan was, as one might imagine, incredibly difficult. They had no friends, they had no family, and no real starting point. They had no home. Bert could have easily been killed in that jail, just as thousands of people just like him were. To this day, he rarely ever discusses his experience in prison or the emotional and mental tolls that it took on him. His philosophy in life is simple. To complain is to forget about life in the present moment. My grandmother had a massive open heart surgery and now has a mechanical heart valve. Betty had a stroke shortly after her surgery and left my grandfather the primary caregiver. Now, this must have been a big deal for someone who has to deal with these mental scars from his past life every day. Yet, despite all of these challenges that my grandpa and his family have faced, I have literally never heard him complain. Now, with all these responsibilities such as going to work, taking care of my grandma, cleaning, cooking, he still manages to set aside time to help me with this project. Now my grandpa is at that age that he isn't getting any younger. Every day I am terrified of the phone call stating that I won't be getting help from him on my final projects or going for midnight strolls at the lake. I think about our cabin at the lake, that he spent more money than I will ever have just for all of us to have some place to hang out in the summers. I think about all the selfless acts that he does for his family and all the things that he has to put up with without a word of protest. I think about the stories that he still to this day shares with me. Don't be crazy, I'm done.